Is Superman super woke?
MAGA conservatives are coming after Superman after director James Gunn said in an interview that Superman is an immigrant that came from other places and populated the country, and that he's the story of America.
You know what it says on his cape? MS-13.
We don't go to the movie theater to be lectured to and to have somebody throw their ideology onto us. I wonder if it'll be successful.
He's creating a moat of woke, enlightened opinion around him.
The DC fans are saying that Superman has always been an immigrant and that superhero comics have always been political, since he was an alien who grew up in Kansas as a refugee.
I'm an illegal immigrant, Mom.
Actor Nathan Fillion, who plays the Green Lantern, said this to Variety in an interview after the backlash.
Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys.
But that's why people are asking.
I watched the new preview for Superman that was put out by James Gunn. The gold standard for Superman movies remains the original Superman because it gets right the idea that there's a solemnity to Superman, that he is supposed to be the embodiment of America. And then the second half of the movie shifts into a more comic book humorous mode. Man of Steel, they basically desaturate the entire film. So the entire color palette is grayscale and kind of ugly and dark, and the entire character of Superman is much darker. Let me just say that it's not that hard to get Superman right. He's supposed to be the embodiment of everything cool and heroic about America, and of course, he's supposed to be charming as well. That's the whole shtick. So you don't need full-scale James Gunn. He's the same character as essentially Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy, and all the jokes are the same as a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. It's silly and stupid and bad. Do not like. 2 thumbs down. Very disappointed. Ugh.
If James Gunn's Superman flops, DC is done, bro. It's game over. Think about it, bro. James Gunn, he purposely restarted the entire DCEU, which makes sense because it was all over the place. There was no organization. There was no plan. Think about it. James Gunn, he has a lot of pressure on his hands, bro. This man recasted an entire universe, and this is the beginning of a new one, right? If this movie flops, James Gunn, DC, you're done. It's game over. There's no coming back. I'm sorry. You're done.
What's up, you guys? Let's get into it. Because DC just dropped the biggest superhero reboot of the decade, and it's already turning into a slow-motion crash. James Gunn's Superman finally flew into theaters with all the hype of a new era. A fresh face, a clean slate, but instead of saving the DC universe, it might have just triggered another full-blown identity crisis. We're talking $425 million in budget and promo, only to open with $122 million in the US and $95 million internationally. That's not just underwhelming, it's déjà vu with a press pass. Add to that the MAGA outrage train rolling in full speed over Gunn calling Superman an immigrant, and the internet's already going nuclear over everything from the tone, the jokes, the pacing. Oh, and the fans calling it mid are not exactly wrong. This was supposed to be the return of the icon, the comeback of the century. Instead, critics are saying it's too safe, fans say it's too soft, and the box office? Well, it's saying a whole lot of nothing. And now, Warner Bros. Is trying to act like $500 million is a win. For Superman. Y'all, come on! So what's going on? Why did the most legendary hero on the planet come back with a whimper instead of a roar? Stick around, because we're digging into the numbers, the controversy, the fan reactions, and the rising whispers that superhero fatigue might be way more real than Hollywood wants to admit. So, let's start with what really lit the internet on fire. James Gunn calling Superman an immigrant. Sounds harmless, right?
James Gunn's Superman might be in trouble, and I'm not the one saying it. Early test screenings for the new Superman movie have sparked mixed reactions. Some say the feedback is positive, but others they're raising serious concerns about the film's direction and overall quality.
Well, not according to certain corners of the internet. Gunn said Superman's story is the story of America, a child from another world raised with Midwest values, a symbol of hope. But instead of applause, that line triggered an absolute meltdown in MAGA circles. Right-wing commentators immediately went in, twisting Gunn's quote into some kind of political statement. One viral tweet even joked Superman's cape should say MS-13 on the back. That's the level we're at. People aren't mad about the movie, they're mad about the metaphor. And suddenly, what was supposed to be a nostalgic, feel-good return of an American icon turned into a front-row seat for another culture war. But here's the thing. Comic book fans, real ones, were quick to clap back. Because newsflash, Superman has always been an immigrant, since literally day one. He's an alien who crash-landed in Kansas, raised as a farm boy, learned American values, and dedicated his life to saving people. That's not woke. That's canon. Even actor Nathan Fillion, who plays Green Lantern in the new DC universe, had to step in during a Variety interview and go, "Somebody needs a hug, it's just a movie, guys." But the internet doesn't chill. The backlash spiraled so fast that it ended up becoming part of the film's identity before it even hit theaters. And when a movie's already getting dragged in culture war headlines before the first ticket's sold, you know the road ahead is gonna be rocky. Because while fans were still debating if Superman should even smile in this version, the box office numbers started rolling in. And that's when things got even more complicated.
One thing viewers seem to agree on, there's a lot of humor in this movie. Some of it works, but in many scenes, it just doesn't fit the tone. Fans who've seen it are calling it average, not amazing, not terrible, just in the middle. And that's not what you expect from a Superman reboot, right? So what do you think? Is James Gunn's Superman going to soar or flop? Let us know in the comments.
Now, let's get into the part Warner Bros. Really doesn't want you to think too hard about: the numbers. Because this wasn't supposed to be just another superhero flick. This was Superman, the relaunch, the reset, the start of a brand new era. And the studio went all in. We're talking a production budget of $225 million, and that's just what's publicly confirmed. Insiders are whispering the actual all-in cost, including marketing, ballooned past $400 million, maybe even flirting with $500 million. So, what did they get back on that? Well, not much. Superman's grand return pulled in about $122 million domestically on opening weekend. Another $95 million internationally. That's $217 million worldwide. Which, let's be real, that ain't nothing. But it also ain't the home run DC was banking on. Especially when you realize that even Ant-Man 3 opened bigger overseas. That's right, Ant-Man. A hero that literally turns into a bug just beat Superman. Let that sink in. And the studio knew what was coming. You could tell. Before the weekend even ended, Warner Bros. Was already out here trying to spin the narrative. Suddenly they're saying they'll be happy if the film crosses $500 million. Wait, what? For Superman? The face of the DC brand? They spent $30 million just putting up billboards, and now $500 million is a win? Yeah, okay. It's the classic move. Set expectations low so anything above that looks like a win, but fans aren't dumb. They've seen this play before. You can dress it up all you want, but if your brand new Superman reboot can't outpace Man of Steel from 2013, especially with inflation and a global rollout, then yeah, you've got a problem.
Superman's actually a refugee.
Isn't that an immigrant?
They're trying to equate those things together, which I think is ridiculous because of the current politicization of that situation.
James Gunn is not the kind of guy who's going to put an American flag in his front yard during 4th of July. And that's the kind of guy you need to be to create Superman.
I did not like this movie at all. Every man in this movie is weak and he cries.
But the real issue, it's not just about the money. The fans themselves are sounding the alarm. All right, now let's talk about the reaction from the people who actually watched the movie. Critics, fans, and everyone in between. And y'all, the reviews? They're all over the place. Rotten Tomatoes slapped an 85% critic score on it, which sounds solid, until you realize the audience score didn't exactly match that energy. And when you zoom in on what people are actually saying, the praise is soft, and the complaints? Way louder. Words like mid, forgettable, and tonally confused keep popping up. And no, that's not just a few trolls online. These are real fans who showed up expecting a triumphant Superman return and walked out wondering why half the movie felt like a stand-up routine. Because, yeah, there's a lot of humor in this one. Maybe too much. Some jokes land, but others feel like they wandered in from a Guardians of the Galaxy blooper reel and never left. One moment, Superman is having an emotional heart-to-heart about legacy and hope. The next, boom, punchline about laser vision or farm life. And it's not that fans are against humor, but with this character, you can't just paste Marvel-style comedy onto the symbol of truth, justice, and, well, you know the rest. It messes with the tone, and more importantly, it messes with the audience connection. Then there's the pacing, some scenes drag, others rush by. It's like the movie can't decide if it wants to be a heartfelt origin story or a snappy action comedy. And the result? A lot of viewers left feeling nothing. Not angry, not thrilled, just kind of empty. And for a reboot this big, that's not just disappointing, it's dangerous.
Chris, there is one silver lining here, which I think you touched on.
Dresses, short skirts, high heels. Cleavage. Thank you, James Gunn, for that.
Hollywood's has been trying to remove masculinity for it seems like
Yes.
the last decade. Once again, it needs to be white boy summer to bring people back to the box office.
Because when even the biggest Superman fans start saying, I'll catch it on streaming, you know something's off. But that's just the surface. The deeper problem? DC was banking on this movie to launch everything next. So here's where things start to get really messy, because this wasn't just a Superman movie. This was the launch pad, the cornerstone, the first domino in James Gunn's shiny new DC universe. Everything that comes next, The Authority, Supergirl, Booster Gold, Swamp Thing, was supposed to ride the momentum of this reboot. But now, that momentum's looking more like a speed bump. Think about it. If the most iconic superhero of all time can't carry a $400 million tentpole to a clean win, what happens when they drop a movie about characters most people have never heard of? This film was supposed to set the tone, establish the vibe, prove to fans that DC had finally found its footing. But what we got instead was a movie that split the room, critically fine, financially shaky, and fan-wise. Lukewarm. And let's not ignore the ripple effect. Merch sales are soft. Halloween costume searches are nowhere near where they should be. Social media buzz fizzling out fast. We're talking about Superman here, and somehow he's making less noise than a second-tier Marvel spin-off. Even internally, there are quiet signs of concern. Warner Bros. Has gone from hyping Gunn's master plan to hedging expectations. Remember when this was going to be DC's answer to Marvel's Phase 1?
Superman movie's been the subject of intense debate and anticipation, which began more than a year before its release. It could be a make or break moment for the waning dominance of superhero movies and for cinematic blockbusters writ large. Some fans were energized by the prospect of a MAGA Superman when the first trailers were released. Director James Gunn's remarks, "The Superman is an immigrant," however, prompted Fox News to label it super woke.
Now it feels more like they're bracing for polite indifference. And fans, they're starting to notice the silence. When the studio's biggest name drops a new movie and there's no viral moment, no "you've got to see this" scene, no massive fan rally behind it, that's not a good sign. And let's be real, reboots only work when they spark excitement, not confusion, not apathy, and definitely not a "wait, didn't we already try this" vibe. But don't worry, Warner Bros. Has a plan, kind of. Let's talk about the spin machine next. All right, let's talk about the spin. Because the second those soft numbers dropped, Warner Bros. Didn't just brace for impact, they reached for the PR defibrillator. The headlines started flying. Best Superman opening ever, outpaces Man of Steel. Fans love the fresh new take. It all sounds great, until you do the math. Here's the truth. Man of Steel opened to $128 million domestically back in 2013, and that was without inflated Thursday preview numbers.
So is it going to be a classic or kryptonite? Joining me with their blistering whistle-stop verdict, Superman himself, actor Dean Cain, Gary Buchler, aka Nerdrotic from the Nerdrotic YouTube channel, Jeremy Griggs from Geeks and Games, and publisher at Film Threat, Chris Gore. Well, welcome to all of you. Right, Dean, let's start with you as the resident Superman expert, because you played him. Your view of this new movie.
Well, I'm excited for it. First of all, these guys all know more about Superman than I do. I promise you that right now.
Just straight Friday to Sunday box office. Fast forward to 2025, and Gunn's Superman, it pulled $122 million domestic, and that's before inflation. So no, it didn't outperform Zack Snyder's version, not even close. And internationally, even rougher. Despite a full global rollout, including China, Brazil, UK, France, Japan, you name it, Gunn's Superman brought in just $95 million overseas. Back in 2013, Man of Steel hit nearly the same numbers with only 24 markets open. And it didn't even have China until later. That's not growth. That's a step backward in IMAX. But here's where it gets slick. Instead of owning it, Warner Bros. Quietly lowered the goalposts. Suddenly, crossing $500 million is being sold as a win, like that's some badge of honor. But with a break-even point reportedly floating around $650 to $700 million once you factor in marketing, that's not a win. That's just survival. This isn't about breaking records, it's about dodging headlines. The studio wants to keep investors calm, keep fans mildly optimistic, and most importantly, avoid another reset button. But when you have to work this hard just to make your numbers sound impressive, you already lost the plot. And the most telling part? No one's celebrating this like it's a cultural moment. Because it's not. It's a calculated retreat from expectations, and it's happening in real time. And just when you think the hype train's slowing down, here comes the bigger threat. Superhero fatigue is kicking in hard. Now let's zoom out a little, because this isn't just a Superman problem, this is a genre problem. We're officially in the era of superhero burnout, and no amount of capes, multiverse crossovers, or CGI explosions can cover it up anymore. What used to be guaranteed box office gold is now just another weekend gamble. And here's why that matters. Superman was supposed to be the safe bet, the crowd pleaser, the reset.
All geniuses.
They've never been Superman. That's the key difference.
Yeah.
I think
Except in their own mirrors.
I'm sorry. I'm excited for this film. I was excited to see it. It looked like a lot of fun. James Gunn had a lot of humor in that original Guardians of the Galaxy. I was excited for it. I still am excited for it. But, you know, the idea they start talking politics and Superman is an immigrant. Superman's actually a refugee.
But if even Superman can't bring people back into theaters, then yeah, we've hit superhero fatigue hard. Audiences are tired of reboots, recasts, and origin stories that all blur together. Tired of every movie feeling like a setup for the next one instead of something worth watching on its own. And tired of studios thinking they can slap a recognizable logo on a poster and call it a win. Let's be real. Marvel started this fatigue with back-to-back releases that felt more like homework than fun. Eternals, Quantumania, The Marvels, and DC, they've been flailing for years. From Justice League chaos to the Black Adam fizzle, it's been one panic pivot after another. Now, we've got a Superman reboot that's trying to be sincere, hopeful, and emotionally grounded. But it drops into a world where the audience has already tuned out. Not because it's bad, but because they've seen this story 100 times. And better, back in 2008, launching a cinematic universe was revolutionary. In 2025, it's noise. People want new experiences, not recycled mythology with a new paint job. And the worst part? The studio still thinks more is the answer. More shows, more heroes, more reboots. But if fans didn't show up for Superman, the most bulletproof name in comics, what makes anyone think they're lining up for Booster Gold? And that brings us to James Gunn himself, the man who was supposed to save it all. Now, let's talk about the man behind it all, James Gunn. Because Warner Brothers didn't just hand him Superman, they handed him the entire future of DC. Full control, clean slate, total creative freedom. And on paper, it made sense. Gunn was the guy who turned a talking raccoon in a tree into box office royalty with Guardians of the Galaxy. He took D-listers and made them stars. So naturally, DC thought, if anyone could breathe life back into Superman, it's him. But here's the twist. Instead of magic, we got maybes. Instead of a slam dunk, we got cautious optimism. And let's be real, that's not what you want from a franchise relaunch. This wasn't supposed to be a soft reset. It was supposed to be a cultural moment, a comeback story, and the fact that it's being met with shoulder shrugs and mixed reviews, that's not a win. That's a warning sign.
And was adopted and assimilated into American culture tremendously well. And so that's a little bit different than
Isn't that an immigrant?
No.
No?
It's a refugee.
Well, refugees are immigrants, so aren't they really?
Well, yeah, but you got to understand, Pierce, the United States is the most immigrant-friendly country on the planet by far. We take more than the next 4 countries legal immigrants every year, more than the next 4 countries combined every single year.
Right. So why would you mind if the narrative is that Superman's an immigrant? Why wouldn't that be a thing to
I don't mind
celebrate?
that narrative, but the truth is he is a refugee.
Gunn staked everything on this. He recast the universe, scrapped the old timelines, hit the reset button on nearly every character. This wasn't just a new Superman movie, it was his Superman movie. His vision, his tone, his shot to prove that DC could finally compete with Marvel on its own terms. And now, that legacy is already under fire. If the foundation is shaky, how are fans supposed to get hyped for what's next? The Authority, Supergirl, Brave, and the Bold, these were all supposed to ride the wave of Superman's success. But if the wave didn't even form, then what are we doing here? It's not that Gunn isn't talented, he is. But this rollout is feeling less like a bold new era and more like a gamble with house money. And the audience is starting to fold. But the quietest part of this whole situation, it's not even about the hate. It's about the silence. Here's the part that really tells the story. No screaming, no outrage, no trending hashtags. just silence. And when you're launching a new universe with Superman, silence is deadly. Think about it. Where's the viral buzz? Where are the quotes people can't stop posting? The moments getting clipped and memed and stitched on TikTok? Where's the obsession? Because after opening weekend, it felt like this movie just vanished. No lasting hype, no fan campaigns, not even the typical Snyderverse pushback. The reception isn't explosive, it's flat. And that's scarier than backlash. Because at least when people are mad, they care. But when your audience shrugs and says, "Hey, I'll stream it later," you've already lost them. Remember The Batman? That movie had people arguing for weeks. It sparked debates, breakdowns, rewatches, or even Guardians 3, Gunn's own movie from just last year. That one had real legs because fans connected with it. They talked about it. They wanted to live in that world again. But this Superman, it dropped, got a polite golf clap, and now it's quietly being pushed to the side. And that's brutal, because Warner Bros. Needed this film to be the ignition switch. Instead, it's functioning more like a half-lit match in a wind tunnel. And if fans aren't rallying behind Superman, if he can't be the emotional core of the new DCU, what chance does any of the upcoming projects have? You can't build a franchise on apathy. And right now, that's the vibe. Not love, not hate, just meh. And worse, the studio sees it. That's why they're scrambling to reframe the box office. That's why they're flooding press junkets with positive sound bites. They're trying to manufacture buzz because the organic excitement just isn't there. And now, with the silence growing louder, fans are asking, where does DC go from here? So, here we are. After all the buildup, all the resets, all the hopeful headlines and cautious hype, Superman is floating somewhere between fine and forgettable. And that's the most dangerous place a franchise can land, because this wasn't just about one movie. This was DC's big reset, the clean slate, the promise that things would finally be different. Instead, what we got was the same pattern: confusing tone, forced humor, soft reviews, financial hedging, and a fan base that's already moving on. Not because they hate it, but because they're tired. Tired of being told this is the one. Tired of reboots that feel like reruns. Tired of caring more than the studio seems to. And for Warner Bros., that's a problem you can't spin away. You can't slap a shiny press release on apathy. You can't meme your way out of fatigue. If Superman, the most recognizable hero in history, can't carry your universe, then what chance does Booster Gold really have? Or Swamp Thing? Or even Supergirl? Right now, DC is standing at a crossroads. And this film, it was supposed to point the way. But instead, it's just raised more questions. Does the audience still care? Can superhero movies still inspire? Or have we hit the point where the cape just isn't enough? James Gunn's vision might still play out. There's talent there, passion too. But without connection, without momentum, you're just building castles on sand. And unless DC figures out how to make people feel again, this reboot might go down as just another false start, because at the end of the day, Superman doesn't need to be perfect. He just needs to matter. And right now, that's the one thing this movie hasn't managed to do. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, drop your thoughts below. Was this the start of a new DCU, or the beginning of the end? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Because we're not done keeping receipts. We've got more Hollywood shakeups, more superhero chaos, and definitely more popcorn-ready drama coming your way.